To start this presentation today, and I was reminded of Russell Nelson's passing and his funeral and what Elder Oaks said during his funeral, because it kind of leads into the topic that I want to talk about today, surprisingly. Does anyone recall what President Oaks said when Russell Nelson became the president of the church, and he sort of explained to him, like, well, who of the first presidency is going to write the first presidency message in The Friend, or whatever it was? Does anyone recall this from the funeral? I guess Russell Nelson's response was, why do we do this? I don't think we need to do this. And then they didn't. So there's not, anyone know what I'm talking? I know not all of you are from the same faith tradition, but it used to be that the first page of the ensign was a first presidency message, and it rotated between the three of them. And if you look in it, it doesn't happen anymore. And it's because when he became the president, he said, why do we do this? Right? So today, I wonder if I'm going to with any luck. With any luck, this will work here. Today, I'll probably rile a lot of pedagogical feathers. But it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting discussion. So, for those of you who recognize this, this is here in the bottom right, is the entrance of the solo piano in Beethoven Piano Concerto No. 3, a very famous entrance. I really wanted you to see this one. The orchestra finishes, and then the pianist comes in. And then, yeah, C minor scales, C minor melodic scales ascending. Who here has taught a C minor melodic scale ascending hands together to your students before? Everybody. Don't, yeah, you all did. So what's the fingering?
Well, it could be standard. I'm looking at that SF up there, and I might want something bigger than my pinky to hit it.
Yes. Stop ruining my lecture.
Sorry. You asked.
Yeah. But what do you mean standard fingering? I think we kind of all, how many times have we, what does the left hand do? Here, let's do this. Ready? C minor. I don't know how many times I have mindlessly drawn this in my students' notebooks. C, D, E flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A natural, B natural, C, just because we're ascending. Right hand, left hand. What does the left hand do? Cross here. And the right hand, cross here. Right? Every scale book that you look at is like that. I agree with Crystal, yes? Oh dear. I need to get that to not. Just one second. I anticipate this being a very obnoxious problem, so hold on, let me just I'm. S- I can show you. I can show you. I didn't realize I'd be talking about rates and also Mac OS today. But if you go to Settings in Mac OS and go to the lock screen, you can switch these two here on top to never. So don't start the screensaver, don't start the sleep mode. But you have to be sure when you're done to set it back, or else your computer will just drain. All right. Yes. Okay. And then Crystal's right. I think there's a sforzando, and I think that you can. You can, if you're using the arm weight correctly and you put it into the pinky, you can. But I feel a little bit like Russell Nelson, like, why? Why are we doing this? Why do we have that? So when I first learned, I played this a few years ago with the orchestra here, and I learned this, and I started just like I was taught when I was 5, but I realized that it wasn't as secure as I always would like it to be. Even this pattern that I've played so many times, right? So I did a different fingering. But to better explain this, I want to actually use my colleague's video. Does anyone here know Scott Holden from BYU? He's a professor down there. He was a recent hire when I was a young undergraduate student at BYU. And he started doing some of these YouTube videos, and he posted this video, and I was like, he's right. And so I was going to just sit here and explain it to you, but I thought, you know what? I just want to watch this with you, and then I want to have a discussion and tell me what you think.
Today, we're going to talk.
You know, it would be really great if... Oh, I know what to do. Hold on. I think I know what to do. Yes. Although this could be remarkably loud. Here we go.
Today, we're going to talk about Olympic high jumping. We're going to talk about a faster way to finger your scales that will make them easier to play and easier to teach. And if we travel back in time to 1968, there was this American high jumper named Dick Fosbury. He revolutionized the sport, and he eventually won the gold medal in the Olympics that year. And what he did was he would jump as he approached the bar. He would just kind of twist his body around, and so that his whole body would go over the bar, but his back facing the bar, legs kind of tumbling behind him. Now, in this was pretty radical because nobody had ever done this type of approach, and it changed the way high jumpers approach the bar after this. Now, what does this have to do with scale playing? So if we also travel back in time, there's a good chance that when you started piano lessons and that day came for you to play your scales hands together, your teacher probably dutifully had you start with C major, because that seems like it's the easiest scale because it's all white notes. It's actually, I think, the hardest of all scales, which we'll talk about in a minute. So probably what happened was that your teacher had you do the standard fingering, which in the right hand is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the left hand, and this is where the problem lies, the left hand standard fingering would be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. So always groups of 3 and 4. Now, here's the hard thing about this scale, is that with that fingering, the problem is that the thumbs never align. And the hands are shifting at different times. And because it's all on white notes, it doesn't really fit the hands particularly well, since our hands are all, our fingers are all different lengths. And it doesn't really fit in terms of black or white notes. because there's not really a depth change. You're always playing on this outer part of the key, even though your fingers are all different sizes. So it's really an awkward scale to start. When I'm teaching scales, I actually always have my students start on C sharp major when they're doing hands together, or B major or F sharp. The C sharp is an easy place to do this. It's because it's a very easy fingering and it's really easy to grasp. You've got the 2 black notes, 2 and 3, thumbs, only on the white notes, the 3 black notes with 2, 3, 4. So it's very easy, it fits the hands comfortably, and it's easy to visualize. Now, this is an easy scale, but we can apply the same fingering principle to other scales that don't normally use this fingering, and they become much, much easier. So again, all scale groupings are made of groups of 3 fingers and then 4 fingers. 3 fingers, 4 fingers. Sometimes they start mid-group, but they always use that alternation. Now, in the left hand of C major, instead of starting with 5, because really what you have is 5, which doesn't count because it's only used one time. Then we've got a group of 4, then 3, 4, 3, 4. But the problem is the right hand is also doing groups of 3 and 4, but it's doing that reverse. It's doing a group of 3, then a group of 4. And let's look at the left hand and see if we can make an adjustment in that fingering so that they're easier to line up. If we start with the 4th finger in the left hand and go to the thumb on F, really what's happening is that the 4th finger on C doesn't really count because it's only used one time. So really what I'm doing is my 4th finger, then a group of 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. And look what happens when you put hands together. My thumbs wind up together on F, and they wind up together on C. All the C's and F's, the thumbs are always together. This is going to make it a lot faster and easier to visualize as a kind of benchmark to see if your fingering is correct. So it also makes it faster to play because you can shift at the same time. This same fingering works for the first 5 scales on the circle of fifths: C, G, D, A, and E. Let's just go through those. So G major, again, start on 4th finger in the left hand, go to the thumb on C, go to 4 in the left hand on D, thumbs together on G, thumbs together on C, thumbs together on G. I can do the same thing with D major, and A major, and E major, and I can also do the same thing with their minor scale components. Now, the amazing thing is I can do the same fingering with I think 3 of the harder scales, which would be B flat, E flat, and A flat. Actually, I could do it with 2 of those scales. So with E flat, traditionally we would start on 3rd finger. So we have a group of 3 and a group of 4. 3, 4. But if I start on the 2nd finger, I can put my thumbs together on F, thumbs together on C. So my left hand has 3, 2, 1. Right hand, left hand, 4, 3, 2, 1. I should note that my right hand fingering is not changing from the standard fingering that you have probably learned. So this gets to stay the same. Left hand, B flat major, I do the same thing. So if I start on B flat with 2, then I go to a group of 4, so 4 on D. Now, here's the hard thing. If you're like me, I spent a lot of my life playing the other fingering, maybe, actually multiple decades. But this guy, this high jumper, he completely changes the sport. He's able to get more height more consistently with more ease. So why wouldn't it change? I'm convinced that at some point, maybe starting right now, this will become hopefully the new standard fingering that is taught, that is practiced. Work on that and you will get speed and ease, and when you're teaching these scales, you will be shocked at how much faster this works. Playing scales hands together is really, it's 4 times harder than playing hands separate. There's a lot going on, but when you can make these alignments of the thumb, it will be much easier.
All right.
I have a student that is going to be so happy to hear this. Because you challenged me to the other, why do we do it like this? That's just the way we do it. I tell them, that's just the way we do it.
Right? It's like, why do we have the first presidency message? Why do we? Right? So why do we do it that way? Well, so what is the solution here? Well, before Scott had posted this video and several years ago when I played this concerto, I had, after all of my years and my doctorate and 10 years of university teaching experience, I have a lot of books that I want to write. One of them is Straight from the Horse's Mouth, which is all of the crazy things I say to my students. One of them is about fingering and sort of accepting some realities about why we make certain decisions with fingerings at the piano. One of them is like coming to terms and realizing the limitations, and I use that word in quotations, of the hand, right? In my mind, it's by divine design, but I don't think AI would design a hand like this. I don't think a computer would. The fingers are all actually wildly different from one another, right? And kind of like he explained in his video and some of his other videos, you have 3 fingers that are somewhat similar, I would say. 4th finger physiologically is problematic. I mean, I shouldn't use the word problematic. It's different because it shares a tendon sheath with the pinky, right? And so that's why when a student is trying to lift the 4th finger by itself, it can't move quite as freely as other ones. Of course, the most obvious one I would say is the thumb. It's shorter, it's fatter, it's just different. And it can serve a different functionality in trying to determine fingering, right? I love to read. I've recently been interested in some of the early treatises that some of the 19th century piano teachers were writing when teaching their students. I don't know if has anyone actually read the preface to the Hannon book? It's actually fantastic. I kind of want to frame the quote. It starts by saying something like, you know, I kind of don't want to slaughter this. Why not just read it? Maybe not. Well, it's going to be here. I just need...
The study of the piano is nowadays so general,
Yes.
and good pianists are so numerous. The mediocrity, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, I just Googled it. Like,
Yes.
it came up.
It didn't come up for me. Say that again. I love this.
At the very beginning. The study of the piano is nowadays so general, and good pianists are so numerous that mediocrity on this instrument is no longer endured.
I love that. And that was the first part. That was the middle of the 19th century, right? 18s, whatever. That it's like, wow, there are so many good pianists now that you can't just be mediocre, right? If you keep reading his explanation about why he designed this exercise, and actually, until Liszt and the school of basically virtuosity, Russian technique of virtuosity, there was a huge emphasis placed on strengthening the equality of the fingers. It was this idea that great pianists' pinkies could do the same thing as their 4th fingers or their 2nd finger, right? It was this idea of strengthening the fingers, which of course in my pedagogical philosophy, especially after all these years, is completely wrong. It's almost like you have to embrace the physiological realities and limitations of the way that the fingers are, and you actually have to come up with solutions to get the result that you want with the limitations that you have, right? So when I was doing that introduction, or the entrance for the Beethoven's Third Concerto, let me find you. I actually did what he suggested. I have a good fifth finger. I've trained him well. I don't trust him. And if I don't need to use them, I don't want to. Right? Nothing against my fifth finger. But I play this opening scale just like Dr. Holden says, and start on 4 in the left hand. And you're doing 4-3-2-1, 4-3-2-1, which requires almost no practice. What's interesting is if you put your hand on the scale and try to start that scale with 5-4, of course, kind of like Dr. Holden, I have multiple decades of now practicing it this way. So my coordination between 5 and 4, okay, I can, but if you were to ask me which one is easier, it's 4-3-2-1, 4-3-2-1. And when you are sitting there after, what is that, like 5.5 minutes orchestral exposition, and you're sitting on stage and you're nervous, and you have to put your hands up and now play a scale hands together. It has to be perfectly together, it has to be clear, it has to be fortissimo, you have to hear all the sounds. I don't want my fifth finger to be involved in that experience. And so it wasn't, you know? And so, yeah, and I got to the point where I was like really reliable. Now, of course, I want to just piggyback off of Crystal's comment. So what do you do in the right hand for the sforzando?
Do you put your thumb under?
You can. I think that's a really good potential solution, because the thumb should be in a relaxed position underneath the fingers and then can land, because the distance won't have to travel very much, right? I also love the fact that you use the short, fat, heavy nature of the thumb to accent that, right? And I do think that that can work really well. Right? Yeah. I like that way better than trying to play up through my fourth and fifth fingers. Right? Right? And it can give you that accent. I chose a slightly different solution, which I'm going to share with you, but I feel like I need to do my punchline for the lecture today, which is, do you know my book, Straight from the Horse's Mouth? Kendra's heard me say this a million times. There is no such thing as a right fingering or a wrong fingering. There are only better fingerings and worse fingerings for each individual pianist. That's what I want you to remember from this lecture. There is no such thing as a right fingering or a wrong fingering. There are only better fingerings and worse fingerings for each individual pianist.
So what if our student with such less experience chooses one that we don't like?
Yes,
It
well,
doesn't work for us.
and I absolutely think, you know, I'm going to tell you, Jeff Shumway, he was a mentor of mine, not my teacher, but I took classes from him at BYU in my undergrad. He has a famous quote he's always saying, do you know, the fingering the editor wrote in that book was probably the very best possible fingering for whoever wrote it. And do you know, like, thinking about that, I hate editorial fingerings. Although, most of the time they're decent, and I think that there's a rhyme and a reason to it. And I've told my students before, it's like, why didn't you follow this fingering? You should at least try it. Do you, the young, inexperienced student, actually know more than the person who at some point sat down and wrote those fingerings in? No, you don't. And so I do think that, I'm not saying, I think what you should do is pedagogically let your students do whatever they want.
Everything with their pinky.
Yes, and that is my go-to example, is like, you know, I had a little 7-year-old, I was a very talented kid that I'm working with, and I was trying to help her learn how to solve fingerings. The mom wants her to just, what are the fingerings? Well, I want her to know what the fingerings are, but I also want her to figure out why it would work. And I said, try that for me, 5-5-5-5-5. And she looked at me like I'm crazy. No, just try it. Well, of course, that was terrible, right? Can you think of a better fingering? I mean, but then your experience as a teacher is eventually going to have to be the final say. What I'm challenging us to reconsider is 5/4 on C major in the left hand, which I still teach my students that. That's the scale. But does it have to be that way? Is there something better? I have found that usually there is a disconnect in the traditional technical training plus the application in the real world. And I'm saying as a teacher, we need to stop being afraid and let ourselves reconsider this, right?
So do you think for little hands, I'm like actually thinking of some of them that are just learning a 1 octave, 2 hands together at this point.
Yeah.
And some of my students have little hands. Do you think the 4 crossing is doable? For
Yeah,
everyone?
I do. I have several thoughts about that. The first one is, I'll tell you, is when in the repertoire will our students find hands together scale playing? Now think about that for just a second. Where in the repertoire, I'm giving you an example, but where in the repertoire is your young 7-year-old student going to have to play scales hands together, especially at a fast speed? Yeah. It's not that you shouldn't know how to do it, and someone's going to play Beethoven Third, and someone's going to play the Son piano concertos, and then it's there. But it's funny how obsessed we can get pedagogically about, like, well, it's time for hands together. So something that I learned from a young age is, especially in those early years, it's all hand separate training in the beginning anyways, right? There's so many of those micro motor skills that they have to learn how to move, to relax their thumb, to move everything correctly, right? But yes, I digress. The short answer is yes. I believe that a young student, almost regardless of the size of their hand, can learn to cross over the thumb in a very ergonomic and relaxed way to get even to the 4th finger.
Well, and it's not me pushing both hands together. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's the student does one and then they start to like.
Yeah, they want to do it.
Together.
Oh, yeah. But it's interesting. It's like, I feel like it's the Matrix, do we all know? I'm finding more and more as I get younger and younger that I'm making references to things, and people are like, what is that? You know the Matrix, I'm assuming. I feel like we're in a matrix where it's like, we got to rethink all of this. It's like, how fast should we be going? I grew up with a teacher, Irene Peary, that was a technical wizard, and we had to play our scales hands together so fast. And I spent so much time to be able to do that. And I should go out and have dinner with her and say, why did I play my scales hands together at 184? What was happening? Like, can you show me an example in the repertoire that, but anyway, I digress. Other thoughts?
So my question is, like, I have a student who, for one of her festival songs, she actually had switched the fingering just a little bit. How much do we check fingering as judges for festival?
Well,
That-
yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that.
Because she's got beautiful long fingers that I do not have, and
Yeah.
so the fingerings for me are not what's best for her. So
Yeah, that's right. And so,
is that a problem? Like,
well, I'm curious to know what you think.
because I have been encouraging her to do what is more comfortable for her.
Yeah, I agree with that pedagogical philosophy. I care about what it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
But we are entering a very gray area where some people are just really upset about this sort of thing. My teacher in grad school, I bet I can pull this up pretty quick. All right, ready? Okay. Some of you might be familiar. Oh man, I gotta wait 13 seconds because I'm not a annual member. So I'll give you the background. I had gone in for my graduate school audition and I played, for my classical sonata, it was Beethoven Opus 2 number 3, one of the early massive difficult pieces. And this is the opening of Beethoven Opus 2 number 3. So you have an open fifth, and in the right hand you have, and of course it's allegro con brio, right? It's happy with sound, with noise. It goes fast. So I think the original conceptualization of this opening is to play the right hand thirds, just alone in the right hand, which you can do. If you use just the right fingering and have just the right motion, you can play and you can roll your hand over it. But I don't do that. I play this, and then I very surgically use the sustain pedal to keep just the right amount of sound held. With this piano, this pedal's kind of clunky. Right? So I took the bottom two notes, the B, C, B, C, with the left hand, and if I hold the pedal just right, I don't think a festival judge is going to be like, "Oh, B minus, you didn't do it the hard way." Do you know what I mean? So my answer is I care very much about how it sounds. But there are some people that come from this tradition where, you know, my teacher was just like, "Oh, a pianist that plays like you, why would you have to do that? You should just," and I'm thinking to myself, I should do it the hard way? Like I should lose, 300 hours of practice. Can you imagine you're sitting down, you're nervous, you have to play your recital, and you start piano with this miserable figuration, and you're shaking a little. I mean, it's just not going to work, right? But some people feel very strongly. They're just like, no, Beethoven wrote it this way. I mean, there are so many great examples of, hey, I must have. Anyways, questions?
So I think, like the repeated note rule of like you can't hit a repeated note with a different, like old school, like I just find in some of my books that they have these weird, 3, 2, 1. I can see how like in pure elites where you don't want to be hitting over and over
Yeah.
the same one.
Yeah,
But
you're talking about
it feels like you're more likely to make a mistake if you're intentionally switching staccato notes to
Yes.
the fingers when it doesn't make you.
So I think what I will, yes, I know, I completely agree with what you're saying, and what I will tell you is, sorry, this is just so distracting. What I will tell you is I would go back to, what is it supposed to sound like? If you have a passage that has a lot of repeating notes that particularly move at a faster speed, there is a difference between rolling across fingers and changing your fingering versus trying to use just your arm to make the movement. And sometimes you do want to do it with your arm with that repeating motion. I think of the way that Ravel initially envisioned his opening of Scarbo, his famous, the little gnome, the devilish gnome piece. And it starts with this sort of scratch wrist staccato. He wants you on the D sharp to just kind of scratch at the key. So it's a certain sound that you want. I think if you were to take your finger and go across with different notes, you might get a remarkably clear sound, very fast repeating notes, but not the sound that you're really going for. So I think sometimes when we have repeating notes in the piano and it calls for the changing of fingering, what I would say is what's the goal? And sometimes it's very easy, particularly for a student who is going to play repeated notes. If they keep the same fingering, we kind of get a whack, whack, whack kind of a sound, and it becomes obnoxious. And so sometimes you you can try and say, hey, will you try switching from 4 to 3 to 2 on these 3 notes? Because it'll give some direction to the sound. But I think the thing I want you to take away from this workshop is there's not just one right way to do it. Just because the editor said change your fingering, it doesn't mean that I'm automatically going to just change it.
So I had a student that is starting Fury Release and doing the repeated notes, and he has really long, skinny fingers. And I showed him how you need to switch the fingers onto A that just keeps on going, because it's going to cause tension if you're, and it's not going to have the nice
Sound to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
And so he tries to do it, and it was terrible. I'm like, well, maybe you just need to practice more. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, am I?
Well, and I
I'm
think,
kind of wondering, like, where do I draw the line? Because in that song, there's a lot of repetition, so it would cause tension if you're just trying to repeat sounds a lot. Where if it was just 5 notes repeated or something.
yeah. It's interesting. In the concert that I just played, I played the Brahms B major trio, and there's this passage in the scherzo where the motive is repeating, right? It does. It has da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. And towards the end of the scherzo, there's this part that is just so difficult to play. And it has these repeating notes. Let's see. So the right hand has 8s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3. And the left hand has to go. And I have tried every possible fingering that I can think of. And for a while, I was like, I don't trust this 4-3-1, 4-3-1. Because going as fast as I need to go, I can't get it to speak. And so I started to try 5-5 on the low note, more with a long forearm and a quick repeat, and then moving to the thumb. And I still think the jury's out about which fingering I should use, right? I think I'm going to use the 4-3-1. But
like the 5-5 helped you be more accurate?
the 5-5 certainly helped me be more accurate, because kind of what you're describing, the 4-3-1. But then I was noticing when I was going up to speed, I felt like there was tension holding me back in the repetition of the 5-5. I needed something to be freer because the notes have to happen sooner, right? So yeah, let me know if you find out. No.
Have you
So-
played this program yet?
I did 4-3-1. I did 4-3-1.
Curious what you use.
Yeah, I did 4-3-1, and I think that with enough practice, and it's interesting. I thought of that because there's this weird calculus you have to do as a teacher, because you can have the content knowledge and know this is going to work better than this, but just because what you're saying is correct, it doesn't mean the student won't have to practice, right? What I want for my students is to end up where they're supposed to be in the most efficient way possible, but that there still is going to be practice and repetition. So it can be the right fingering and still be hard in the beginning, right? That's where the content knowledge of the teacher really counts. Is like, I've been there before, I've tried this, I trust me. Practice it this way, using it these speeds and this, and then eventually it will unlock. So I don't think it's necessarily wrong that those fingerings are repeating, but it's not necessarily going to just be like, oh, it just worked. It just magically worked. You know what I mean?
All right, so my question is, this is all great information, and sometimes when it's hard, this is the right fingering, and I know it's hard, but you have that kid that's like, I don't care, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So you play this game of, okay, this would be better, but if I keep pushing, then I'm going to lose your interest, and we're going to lose practice.
Yeah.
So what's the line you play with? Here's how you do it to get really good, and here's how I'm going to let you do it because that's your interest level.
Yeah.
I find that valid.
Yeah.
I have a lot of kids take because mom says you have to take.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
have
and I
kids
was
that
one
are-
of those
they're
kids.
not- they're not
not.
I took because my
they're
mom
not
made
bought
me
in. You know, so they say, yeah, that's cool. I don't want to do it that way. It's hard.
We give them one M&M each time they do it.
There you go.
to. That's my daughter's. That's how I.
Well, I even have older students, and like, here's candy, and they're like, I buy my own candy.
Yeah.
I do not know how to motivate you.
Apple gift card.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very interesting question.
So I find myself a lot of times saying, okay, just do it your way, and we'll call that good enough.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's interesting, circling back to how our whole discussion started today, I think kind of depends on your audience too, right? Like who is it that you're teaching? What's the end goal? And, you know, I find myself more and more shocked. I don't know if it's a generational shift, but I teach some students and I'm always surprised, like they're like, I'm like, I need you to do it this way, I want you to do this. You played this wrong. And I get back, are you sure? I'm like, oh my God. These are my university kids. I'm like,
These are COVID kids.
yeah, I think so. I think there's something happened where I'm just like, and then I think in my old age, I'm starting to get like impatient with them. I'm just like, so stand up and I'm like, hey, I'm going to figure this out because, you know, it's like, your counting's wrong, your fingering's wrong, this is not working. And it's like, are you sure? And I'm like, so then I'll just practice in front of them for 6 or 7 or 8 minutes, figure it out and be like, there, it was wrong. And you know.
I like your idea though of inviting them
Yeah.
to try it. Well, let's try it. Let's try it this week. And if it doesn't work out after you've worked it,
Yeah.
let's go back to your way. But
Yeah.
inviting, I think inviting.
Well, and also being realistic about what if their way is the 5-5-5-5-5 scale?
Yeah.
Or excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, right? Which we've all seen that famous scale before. And if their position is no, I want to do it this way, then I mean, right? So we're talking about drawing lines in the sand. It's like for me, it's like I can't teach you, right? It's like
There's no teachability.
yeah.
So do
You know.
you sacrifice that person's possibility in gaining something musicality-wise?
Yeah.
Or
You're asking very difficult ethical questions, right?
all because of fingering?
You know, all because of
But I do
fingerings.
think kids like to be challenged, and like I'll draw little boxes on their thing, like do this 5 times each time you practice, and then it's fun. Like I was teaching them chromatic, you know, the 2, 3, and
Yeah.
now I have a student and he just loves to go up and down and show me that it worked, you know, and so he liked the challenge, and so I don't know, somehow getting them to like almost like a game, or like see if you can do it, like you know, challenge.
Yeah, I'm talking to some teenagers.
Yeah,
So this,
right.
let me put this one more ethically deep that ties back to your conversation earlier. I don't feel like, I tell my students, if you want to be a concert pianist, if your goal today is to become a concert pianist, I'm not your teacher.
Yeah. Well,
If you
or
want to learn some music and you want to learn to love it and I will help you grow as well as I can in what your goals are, but if you want to be that perfect concert pianist, I'm not the one. So then I feel like I'm not going to charge a ton of money because I'm not the one that's going to teach you to be a concert pianist if you want. So you get what you pay for, and if you want to use that fingering, fine, use that fingering.
Yeah,
I'm going to help you learn to love music.
I think I go back to it depends who your audience is. I also think though that even if maybe you feel like in your experience or your training, there's going to be a cutoff where you feel like maybe I'm not going to be able to bring. It's still, that doesn't mean that you can't teach the content knowledge that you do know well,
Yeah.
right? And so I would hold to that, you know.
I go back to my first, sometimes I'll say, why did you do that, you know? Or,
Yeah.
like, you know, so why did you use that fingering, you know?
And most of the time it's a blank stare. I don't know. I ran out of fingers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just lazy, right?
And I think, yeah, you know, you're touching on something I totally agree with, is that I think too, like, I'm the son of immigrant parents, right? They came from Brazil, from very poor circumstances, and we all had to do piano. I'm so shocked sometimes when I engage some parents of new students or whatever. It's like, well, it's like sometimes you do have to do the hard thing. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like this idea of rates and why is it that in art or music it has to be like so skewed. I've never met a parent, or maybe I will, it's coming, right? But my kid came home and said they hate math, so we decided we're not going to do math. Okay. You know what I mean? So if we came home and said we didn't want to practice piano, do you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, we still had to. And I have two brothers who are software engineers. One guy's in sales. The youngest one, who works for Apple as a software engineer, was accepted to university study for piano performance, but then switched his major. They play great. They're good pianists. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a concert pianist, right? But I think they're grateful that they learned, That I have not yet had in my career. I'm still waiting if that will happen. Someone say the words to me, I regret learning how to play the piano. Not yet. It might happen, but it's never happened. So I don't know.
Well, because it teaches more than just.
Yeah, of course.
It's discipline.
It's discipline, creativity, all of that. Yeah.
That helps kids have something. Some kids in sports, but music, it helps their brain even beyond.
Yeah.
Confidence too. And
Confidence.
It takes guts to get in front of even
Oh,
your
yeah.
teachers and play in front of your teacher.
To go to a studio recital, like you learn how to do that. So many other parts of, you are so much better equipped to engage the real world by having had some of those experiences. I know we're short on time. I have several examples I wanted to show you of passages in the repertoire where creative fingering had saved the day. I showed you the Beethoven Concerto, the Beethoven Opus 2 No. 3. But just like Scott Holden's video, and I drew this diagram up here so you could just more visually see what was happening, here's that opening scale of the Beethoven Concerto. And now if you adjust it so that the ones line up, you actually take advantage of this seemingly imperfect layout of these fingers, and what you're doing is just grouping it so your thumbs land together, and suddenly it's so much more efficient, right? And I'm a teacher of analogies, and one of the ones that I teach my students is if you've got to take all of these books from this side of the room and put it over there, you can take one book at a time. Go over there, lean over, lift with your back, put your book down, and come back. But what else could we do, right? And it's thinking like, well, I could take 10 books at a time. It'll cut the whole experience down. Or what if we had a dolly of some kind, a hand truck of some kind that we could just maybe stack half of the books. I think fingerings, every time you engage a fingering in the repertoire, it should be with that perspective. How could I do this to be easier to do, right? More effective to do, and be able to do it in performance? I suppose, if you have to go, I understand, but I can just at least show you one other one. Of course, Kendra will immediately recognize this because she's playing this in her senior recital in April. But what about the second line, third measure? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, measure 6. What we have there is a C natural minor scale, right? And now, it's like if we had more time, I'd break you up into groups and say, come up with a solution on how to do this, right? And of course, you could just do what we might consider the traditional fingering, but my opinion about keeping my fifth finger out of this if I don't want it to be there. But sometimes you have to kind of look around and look at your surroundings and realize, oh, there's even an easier way. And this is what I have Kendra do, right? Which is, if you notice underneath that scale, they're just rests. So why doesn't the left hand play the first 4 notes and then the right hand play the next 4 notes? and there's not even a crossing. I mean, it's like you can teach a 5-year-old who's never played the piano before that by rote. Take these 4 fingers and go like this, and then take these 4 fingers and go like this. And so then when you're starting your senior recital and you're nervous and it's like you got to play this 30-second note passage of a scale, but really it's ba, and then by the time your left hand's done playing the first 4, it can move and prepare to play the next notes, the F and the C underneath, because there's a rest there, right? But it's like being willing to think outside of the box when your default is probably going to be, when I was 6, I learned 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay? Questions? And I hope you're looking at it and disagreeing, like, no, you can't do that. No, I want to know that. That's the whole idea. It's trying to figure out why it wouldn't work or why it would work.
No,
Right?
it was absolutely like, didn't even consider adding in the left hand on that scale, but I did notice the left hand with the rest. It was like, you see that's like a right hand, and I was like, oh, no, actually, if the left hand's kind of hanging out, not doing nothing, guess what? We can actually.
It could help make it easier. Yeah.
I'm gonna play scales this afternoon.
Yeah, go try putting ones together and kind of see how that feels like.
But then it's also keeping up, like, what's the end result that you really want? It's the sound.
Yeah.
It's the sound that we want.
Yeah.
And guess what? You can achieve the sound a few different ways.
Correct. And I also think too, I've been picking on my 5th finger so much today. But there are instances, I do think, based on probably like Crystal was saying before, it's like in this example of the Beethoven concerto, we're going to a sforzando. So don't use 5. But what if it's like a Mozart passage that ascends and it is diminuendo to pianissimo leggero, and you want the last notes to be as soft as you possibly can? I wouldn't tuck 1 underneath. Do you know what I mean? And so suddenly you're taking advantage of the physiology and saying, but for this, I want this. And then you make that adjustment. Okay, thank you. If there are any other questions. Okay, thanks you guys.